Okay, can I please call this meeting to order? Today is Tuesday, February 19th. This is the Raymore Arts Commission. And with that, will you please provide the roll call, Dana?
Chair Parise,
Here?
Commissioner Gambrill,
Here.
Commissioner Lawrence,
Here.
Commissioner Martin,
Here.
Commissioner Berry,
Here.
Commissioner Canovic,
Here.
and Commissioner Setzer.
Here. Thank you. If we'll stand and do the Pledge to the Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I don't believe we have any public comments tonight unless the staff has something since this agenda. So we'll proceed with the staff reports. Meredith?
Great, thank you. Good evening, everyone. I'll start this evening with the budget report. It is included in your packet for you, and the items in italic have not been approved for the council yet, but are just, there is a reference point, for what tonight's agenda holds. So if everything is approved this evening, you'll have $11,680 remaining for the year. Next, I wanted to hit a couple of upcoming meeting dates. February 15th, I'm going to take a drink. On February 15th, you have your joint meeting with the City Council. That will begin at 7 p.m., and we'll talk more about that shortly. February 16th, we have our second strategic planning meeting. Doors will open for that at 6 p.m., and the program will start this time at 6:45 p.m., so a little sooner, and we will also be done at 9 p.m. So we're compressing that schedule just a bit. Still at Eagle Glen, same setup as before. We have our final strategic planning session on February 29th, also at Eagle Glen, same time frame. Doors will open likely at 6, and we'll get started about 6:45. And like before, we'll have food and free childcare available at those events. On March 3rd will be the Public Art Committee, their next meeting, and then March 8th we have our next regular Arts Commission meeting. Any questions about upcoming meetings? Nope. Okay. Quick update on the City Council art exhibit. You can see behind me that has been hung, and Chair Paris was here last night to present to the City Council and recognize some of the students who have their arts included in this exhibit. We will be advertising for our next call for artists either this week or at the very beginning of next week. Those applications are due to Dana by March 1st, and then they'll go to the Public Art Committee on March 3rd to be ready to come to the Arts Commission on March 8th. So we're hitting that schedule. It'll be right around the corner, actually. Something that just came up, and we don't need to talk too much about it tonight, but I just want to put a bug in your ear. There has been a suggestion to consider purchasing one piece from each art exhibit to hang in a city facility, and so I think that might be an interesting way to honor this exhibit and continue it throughout our buildings. So I just present that to you, and I'll put it on the agenda for the Public Art Committee to discuss more in depth at their meeting. But that was one of the suggestions from last night. The City Council during their comments were very complimentary of this project, and they're enjoying seeing it hung in this space.
Excuse me, Meredith.
Yeah.
Are you speaking about purchasing one of these pieces or one of the ongoing exhibits?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Summer scene. Next on the list, I'll turn it over to Mike.
For the last couple of weeks, we've mostly been focusing on putting together our applications for vendors, as well as putting together the application for our juried art exhibit. The Summer Scene Committee has not met this month, but there's been an awful lot of work going on behind the scenes. I've been meeting with our city clerk and speaking with the county health officials just to make sure that as we do invite vendors to the Summer Scene event, that we will have all the paperwork necessary and that we're charging the proper fees. And so we've kind of been going back and forth with them. Have involved our city clerk in some of the conversations as well, because the committee had discussed having a juried exhibit, and as part of that, those artists would be able to exhibit and sell their artwork. By opening up the sales component, we do need to make sure that we are complying with any sales tax regulations or ordinances, as well as making sure that all of those artists and vendors that we invite, even if they're not part of the juried exhibit, do comply with any of kind of our city vocation, not vocation, I misspoke, with any of our city licensing requirements. There is an exception through the state and city where, because much like a farmer's market, our artists would be considered a vocational rather than occupational licensing. But there are still some financial requirements that we need to work out, and we'll be working with, ongoing with the city clerk and our city attorney to make sure that we dot all the i's and cross all the t's.
Does anybody have any questions? Heather?
I would like to know more about the juried art competition part.
Sure. This was something that we had discussed at our February, the committee had discussed at the February meeting. We are going to be inviting artists both here locally as well as in the region to submit up to 3 pieces to be considered. The committee will be making the final selections, and we'll be inviting a couple of individuals, one that a committee member had identified, as well as I'm looking at another individual from Metropolitan Community College, also a professional artist, who would be interested in working as jury members for this competition. We've divided it up so far tentatively into 4 categories. It would be kind of 2D art, 3-dimensional photography, as well as jewelry. Each category would have, a prize for first place, and then we would have an overall category for what we would consider kind of our pick of the folks that were in attendance that day.
And where will this work be displayed?
We'll be displaying it in the depot. The hope is that we could turn the depot actually into kind of a pop-up gallery for the day, displaying it there in the shelter, and then as the rest of the festival is taking place kind of in the grassy area, and then our stage would be set back off where the utilities are, kind of at that back tree line. Mhm.
Thanks, Mike. Anybody else have questions for him?
Okay. Next on the agenda is the joint meeting with the city council, and I am going to take over your computers for a moment. Let's see if I can get the projector back on. I'm not sure. Do you want to pass that down? My projector club will handle this for me to get it so everyone else can see. So Jill, Sharon, and I have been working on the presentation for...
Are we supposed to
Oh.
see something yet?
Yeah. Hold on. First time. There you go.
Oh.
Okay. Everybody see this? Okay.
Yes.
Great. So Jill, Sharon, and I have been working on the presentation that will be presented to the city council during the joint meeting next week. Just some logistics about that meeting. The meeting does start at 7 p.m. I would ask all of you to be there at 7. There will likely be one short item on the agenda before you. The Parks Board will be there to present the design concept for the activity center that will be at Recreation Park. So we have some renderings available just as an FYI to the board or to the council. So I don't anticipate that presentation taking very long. We just want to get that out of the way so that then you guys can take all the time that you need for your conversation.
So that presentation by the board will start at 7?
That will start
Okay.
at 7.
Okay.
Yeah, the meeting will start at 7.
Okay.
And so during the meeting, we'll have this room set up in kind of the U shape that some of you may have seen the city council use during work sessions. All of you who are in attendance, and hopefully you're all able to make it, will be invited up to sit with the city council so that you can have a conversation about what we'll be talking about during the presentation. Any questions about the logistical piece of this? Nope. Okay. So Mike has copies of this PowerPoint for you, and I'm going to give it to you to take home. There may be a few minor changes we make between now and then, but I just wanted to bring everybody up to speed on what this would look like and see if we've missed anything or there are any big questions. So I'm not going to give the full presentation. I'm just going to hit the highlights. So as you can see on this, Sharon will be giving the opening kind of portion of this presentation, she'll be introducing the Arts Commission and talking about the charge that you all were given from the city code and by the city council when you were first formed. Then we'll be going into what's happened so far in 2015, and so this is somewhat of a little timeline that she'll be talking through to hit the highlights of all the work that you've done so far. And then she'll give a quick sneak peek into what 2016 looks like for the Arts Commission projects to date. After summarizing those items, we'll transition with Jill to really talk about the community conversations that you all did in the fall. So I'll give a brief overview of the process and how we found Jill and what her background is. And then we'll talk quickly about the statistics that we got from the online survey and just the number of people who showed up to participate in the process, which was a great turnout. And then Jill will transition into talking about the findings that she presented in her final report. So we'll do activities, programs, and events, then the venues, the partnership conversation, and then she'll wrap up talking about these two components of the brand and getting the word out, the marketing component of the project. And once she's done, then we've kind of taken those key questions that she presented at the end, and we wanted to create a single slide that we could keep up as a discussion guide as we transition into the discussion portion of this presentation. So I will kind of frame up the three options for how the commission can be structured. So we have our volunteer core, like a Friends of the Arts program, where it's really more program oriented and you all out doing the work. Then we have the council advisors, which is really making just policy level decisions, much like planning and zoning commission. You're not doing, you're just providing feedback and guidance as requested. And then option 3 is you're doing policy and programs. And so we've identified 4 topics of conversation, or 4 topics for discussion under each of those. If they choose, let's say option 2, what would the expectations be? What level of decision-making authority would the Arts Commission have? Funding, if needed, where would that come from? And then how does the interaction with other departments look? And then we included some other questions along the side. Just in general, is the Arts Commission still a good fit for the city? The conversation about what the relationship looks like with the Parks and Recreation Department, and then the conversation about the separate nonprofit. And so these are all just provided as discussion points to help keep that conversation on track and to help the Arts Commission get the feedback they're looking for walking away from that meeting that evening. Sometimes these meetings, unfortunately, involve everybody kind of sitting around and looking at each other, and so we know how important it is for you all that this is a productive meeting, and so that's one of the reasons that we provided kind of a discussion guide for it. So this is the last slide in this presentation. Any thoughts, anything that we're missing? Questions?
Just maybe under the partnership section, we could add the schools in, which we're already doing, but it just wasn't there.
Sure. In this one, is this the findings slide?
Under community and business.
Partnerships, yeah. So these are the headings that Jill uses in her final report. So I'm going to make sure these match so she can reference back and forth. But I know under Keep Local Focus, she talks about the school partnership.
And just, Heather, just so you know, right in the beginning, when we talk about some of the things that we've done in 2015, we will be bringing up the partnership with the schools again, the sponsorship, so it will be brought in. It's just not highlighted there on any of the slides.
Yep.
Are there any other questions for Meredith or myself? And hopefully this will be an interactive conversation with the council members and the mayor, and you know, so we should all feel free to make comments or ask questions, and we want it to be as interactive and meaningful as possible that night. So hopefully this will be a framework that we can use to do that. Yes.
So on the last slide, the key questions, the options. Essentially what the options are saying is doing, option 1 is planning and creating, option 2 is making policy and assisting
Assisting the city council.
the city
Yes.
council. And number 3 is both.
Is both.
And what we're presenting to the city council is their concept of what are their expectations
Correct.
based on what we're giving them
Mhm.
in the previous slides.
Yeah. Ideally, an outcome of this meeting or a follow-up meeting would be that they would be able to identify for the Arts Commission if how they're hoping you operate is option 1, option 2, or option 3. So if you know if they're only expecting you all to give policy level feedback and react to their request for information, then that would cut out the proactive planning component of the work that you would be doing, or vice versa. Maybe they don't want policy level feedback, only planning. So we're just trying to get, I don't think they've provided a lot of good guidance on that. That was one of the outcomes of Jill's work with you all. And so getting them narrowed down a little bit to have that conversation, I think, is our hope for this meeting.
And as you'll see in the other questions section, it may be a thought process that we have to set up some type of nonprofit entity, but that's why we put that section in there, because, or we might become part of Parks and Rec. We just don't know, but
Yeah.
hopefully that night it'll become a little more clear.
Mhm. Yeah.
Does anybody else have any questions?
I have a quick question.
Sure.
Now, looking at these, the options and the other questions, don't you see this as something that we should be probably revisiting, like every 3 years or so? Just question ourselves, are we going where we're supposed to, where the council wants us to go?
By all
Is-
means.
Is this still looking like it's going down the right path for the city? And if so, if not, but it's something we should just touch on occasionally.
Yeah. So the Arts Commission, at least annually, will have a joint meeting with the city council. And so I think coming back to some of these questions, a year from now, you'll have a lot more information based on the direction you get about, is it working, how we're operating? But I think you're exactly right. This needs to be revisited regularly. And the council, that's the intent of those joint meetings, is to have these, are we doing what you're hoping we're supposed to be doing conversations. One question.
All right.
Yeah.
Anybody? Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, I always-
Go ahead.
I'm sorry, I missed the first town hall, or, yeah.
It was a raging success.
I saw, what, 220 people or
Yeah.
something like that? Was that
It was
that right?
180.
Uh,
Close.
340.
Yeah.
Was there anything, for those of you who were able to be there, that came out of that sparks any kind of intuition or did you get anything from the citizens who were there that would give us some additional guidance or additional questions to ask? And I don't know who was there, and so.
Well, I know Pat and Heather was there, Desiree was there, and Bob, we were all there. Becky, were you there? Okay. I'll just speak from my viewpoint. I think what I saw, and I know the very last section of the meeting was people just throwing out ideas, and it was scrolling down, so I couldn't keep up with all those. But generally, what I saw as my big takeaway is that the citizens, at least at that meeting, are very focused on community connection. Just making sure that we all connect as a community in some fashion, and it seemed to me that art would be a part of that, connecting with, interacting with neighbors, and art could be a part of that. I mean, it wasn't specific to art. I didn't, that wasn't mentioned in any capacity that I remember. But I would think that walking paths, sculpture along walking paths, in enhancing the park areas, whether it's with, entertainment, I think that there's a place for that. And maybe in the second and third meetings, that can become more of a focus.
She's correct. So the second meeting will drill down, and there is a specific conversation point around culture and art that will be presented as part of that second meeting.
I did notice that one of the things, and I,
Speak into the.
oh,
Yeah.
I did notice in one of the parts of the report, which I confess I read pretty fast, but talking about the need for a sort of downtown or a central, which we've sort of bemoaned, and I don't know how we get out of that and create that, but it seems to me that, for me, that's a big issue for all of us. And how to find where that is and negotiate with that space and
Yeah.
create it, so.
Yeah. That will be a big project and an
Uh-huh.
exciting one,
Uh-huh.
depending on what happens with it. But
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
other questions about this? Okay. I will give you your screen back in a second. I'm not exactly sure how. There you go.
All right, thank you for the staff reports. Now we are going to have a committee update by the Public Art Committee, so I don't know which of you ladies is going to make that presentation.
So that's actually later on the agenda. It's down at the
Did I
bottom.
miss that?
It's under new business.
Oh, I thought it said committee
It is on-
updates.
Oh, it's just the next meeting, just an FYI that the
Oh, I
next
see,
meeting.
I'm sorry,
Yeah.
okay. The
Yep.
next Public Art meeting is March 3rd.
Mhm.
All right. All right, we only have one consent item tonight, and that is the minutes from the prior meeting on January 12th. May I have a motion and a second to approve those minutes?
So moved.
A second, please?
Second?
All right, is there any discussion, comments, questions, corrections to those minutes? Okay. Can we please vote on approving the minutes? All those in favor, please raise your hand. Okay, that's unanimous. The minutes are approved. Thank you. All right, old business. Previously, we had talked about a sponsorship opportunity for the Ray-Pec Band, and Meredith, did you just want to clarify where we stand on that?
Sure. So thanks to Commissioner Setzer, we were able to get connected with the band, and the opportunity that they have presented for Arts Commission consideration is to be a sponsor of the 7th and 8th grade band. This band is doing a series of performances this spring, and they would be able to utilize the $300 to help support those performances, both the travel costs and preparation. So I did confirm they will be able to list us as a sponsor, and so the budget amount, like I said before, is $300.
All right, now, we've already approved.
There,
so
you
we
need a motion to approve.
Okay. May I have a motion from someone to approve this $300 for the Ray-Pec Band sponsorship?
So moved.
A second?
Second.
Okay. All those in favor of approving the $300 for the Ray-Pec Band sponsorship, please raise your hand. Okay, that's unanimous. Thank you, and that is passed. All right, on to new business. Now we come to the public art project, the Adirondack chairs, and
I'm going to
now's when I
report
can
out.
ask who's
Yes.
going to be making this presentation.
I'm going to do the initial report
Okay.
out for the committee, and then we will have an opportunity to discuss after. So a minor change from what's on your agenda this evening. Initially, we were going to present a budget figure and get firm approval to move forward. Based on some conversations we've had recently, the Public Art Committee is going to spend one more committee meeting discussing it in March, and then it will come back to the Arts Commission for full approval to move forward and take it, I believe, to the City Council, although we need to get some clarification on that next week at the next meeting. We should still be able to hit all the dates, but I'll talk about timelines in a moment. So just to bring you up to speed, hold on one second. Mike, can you turn on the projector for everyone, please? Thank you. So the project overview, and some of you may have seen projects like this before, is to essentially have artists decorate and deliver chairs to be displayed throughout the community through the summer of 2016. And so right now how the Public Art Committee is proposing that it be structured is that participants would purchase a chair, and we're working with local vendors to get those at a good rate. We may get sponsorship dollars to cover purchasing the chair. The artist would decorate the chair, and then they would be displayed at Summer Scene as kind of the kickoff to the event on June 11th. Following Summer Scene, they would be placed at designated locations throughout the community, and it would be a public art exhibit that would go the entire summer. There are a couple of components additional to just displaying and decorating the chairs that the committee is working through. We're looking at spring decorating workshops, so some opportunities to bring artists in and help people work through their design ideas. There's been a conversation about building and decorating a large-scale Adirondack chair and placing it in a public space, much like you see on the screen. There's an opportunity to do a community treasure hunt, something like if you go see all the chairs, or you see so many chairs, or something like that, and incorporate social media into that as a way to engage and interact with the exhibit. An additional conversation about a photo contest, get some photography of the chairs as they're displayed, and then a conversation about potentially doing an auction to transition this into a fundraising opportunity for the Arts Commission. So the committee wants to work through a few more details on these additional components before presenting the full project plan to the Arts Commission. Initially, we had talked about a budget of about $1,000. I don't think it'll be much different than that, but we want to firm up a few more dollars before bringing that back to the group. And then, like I talked about, here's a draft timeline for this project. So on March 8th, the final plan and budget request would come to the Arts Commission. That would allow it to go to the City Council if needed on March 14th, and us to hit the kickoff date of March 26th. The conversation is to kick it off at the Easter egg hunt, maybe have some chairs decorated, an information table to help get people on board to decorate the chairs. Host decorating workshops and recruit artists in April and May. Like I said, on June 11th, kick off the display at Summer Scene, and then June through August actually have the chairs on display and do some of the community engagement projects that we've discussed. So just to frame the conversation tonight, I think the Public Art Committee is looking for a direction from the Arts Commission to continue moving forward with this project, with the understanding that a more detailed plan will be brought back in March.
Could I ask a question? The chairs themselves, are they, what's the composition? I mean, are we thinking wood Adirondack chairs or plastic or?
That is still a conversation that's taking place. So obviously plastic chairs are cheaper, but one of the things that the Public Art Committee is still confirming is how you decorate those, and making sure paint works appropriately on them. Of course, a big component, if you're asking people to purchase the chairs, is keeping it at a price point that allows participation. So that's a detail that the group is still working through. And I know Desiree has been, and Harriet, the whole group has been making calls on that this week in particular. So if you have anything else to add, feel free to jump in.
And as far as kicking it off at the Easter egg hunt, where is that Easter egg hunt? Is that Memorial Park?
It's at Memorial Park.
So your idea would be to announce it during the Easter egg hunt, or have a table and display of some kind?
Yeah, there's booths. There's pop-up booths at that for different vendors, and so it would be very easy to put up a pop-up tent and have a table and some sample chairs decorated and on display there, and we could have the marketing materials available at that event. But it's a pretty great turnout at that event, and so it would be a nice place to hit a bunch of people and let them see in person what's going on.
Mr. Berry?
Is that actually on, when is that?
March 26th. It's a Saturday before Easter.
Would we have time to get at least one chair decorated by then?
Yeah.
Well, and one idea about the big chair would be that the big chair would be a big attention getter.
Oh,
And so if we could, and that has to be actually constructed. So that's one of the issues that is being worked out, and how can we do that least expensively, and then getting it decorated. But there would be opportunities for other smaller chairs, or the chairs that we're going to use, there could be some there, like some of us could decorate chairs, since we won't be able to enter any contests or anything.
Right.
So,
Becky?
I was just wondering if there had been any consideration for a grant process for any groups who, depending on the price of the chair, might not be able to pull together. I mean, if it's several $100s, or I don't even know what the price point we're
So
thinking about is.
probably the most expensive it would be is $50 a
Okay.
chair. So, and we are looking at sponsors to help cover the cost of the chairs, but I will add grant component as a discussion point for the next meeting.
and we might clarify that we are meeting March the 3rd.
Right.
So
Right.
that's, it's not on the timeline, but that's, and we've been doing a lot of
Right.
emailing.
Are there any other questions from any of the other commissioners?
Mm-hmm.
All right, then we need a motion tonight to move forward on this project. May I have a motion to approve moving forward on this project?
So moved.
A second?
Second.
All right, those in favor of moving forward, please raise your hand. And it's unanimous, so go for it, ladies. I think it's a great project. I hope it works out and comes to fruition. All right, thank you. All right, our second piece of new business is Commissioner Stetzer would like to present some ideas about musical events, and I believe she has some handouts for us.
Since, excuse me, since musical events and concerts have been mentioned in the focus groups with people that came about the arts, plus we heard it again at Reimagine Raymore, it certainly, excuse me, seems to be on people's minds. So I did some thinking about this, and actually had been thinking about it for quite some time. Being a musician, I've had some experience with some of these groups over the years, so I bring to you some background. You can look over there. The idea is that we help an entity that's focused on music events get started in Raymore, give them direction, give them some financial aid, and let them go. And I've given you some ideas. There are some different cities that have done this. We want to bring them together, help them establish a board to clarify their goals, establish priorities, raise funds, organize a group that will ultimately operate on their own after initial organization and financial support from us. Therefore, that is more reflective of, we hope, more reflective of what the community wants, and leaves this commission free to do other endeavors. I have a list here of similar-sized cities in Missouri. All the cities in Missouri who provide arts for the citizens utilize the Missouri Arts Council and MACA and several of the other. There isn't anybody who isn't doing that. Nixa is exactly our size. They are part of Springfield Regional Arts, but they're not particularly active in community music. Again, Rolla, member of the Regional Arts, not a lot of activity going on with them. Ferguson, again, nearly our size. They're a member of Regional Arts, not active. However, they think they are going to commission a play. Warrensburg is very near our size. They have more resources, and they've had a number of organizations over the years. However, they have splintered and not always done well for whatever reason. They reorganized in 2009 and became something called PAS, Performing Arts Society, which was fostered by the new university president that came in. And they have a 7-member board. I was part of the organizing part of that, but did not become a member of that board. Could not do it. I don't live that close to the area, but helped them get started. They have good support throughout from the businesses, from the Chamber of Commerce, the city, and the university. University helps them a lot. They've, in the past few years, developed street festivals. They've opened galleries, sponsored concerts during the summer, and they do a large multiple-day fall festival now, which none of that happened before. It's pretty impressive what they've been able to do. Sedalia, excuse me. They're larger than us, and they've been established a long, long time. They have several different organizations that are not particularly collaborative. They go their own way. The Scott Joplin Foundation has been around for a long, long time, but they have had trouble maintaining someone to be the executive director and keep that one going. It's also a large festival. However, they have helped open galleries. They do have an arts council down there, but it all sort of works very independently. If it's collaborative, you can't tell, and there's not every time when they all come together. They all seem to go their own way. However, a couple of the groups have become very good at getting campaigning to get donations, have used some ingenious things. But where it comes apart for them is the people to get the work done. They lack bodies and volunteers. That's what's hurting them down there. Larger city, much larger, Joplin, they have the Pro Musica series, but when they started Pro Musica about 1980, they were about our size, not much larger. This was started by a handful of individuals who wanted to bring quality music experiences to Joplin, and they wanted those to be free. They're still in existence. I have seen them work. I have been hired by them a couple times, seen their contracts, see how it works, all the different angles of it. They have approximately 4 events a year. 3 are smaller events. Those are always free, occasionally on the campus, but usually in a Presbyterian church in town that has good facilities and loans it out to them. Their biggest event is called the Summer Picnic, or the Joplin Picnic. They hold it on the Circle Lawn at Missouri Southern, and it is, that's the one I have been involved with twice. It is a huge event, lots and lots of people, hundreds and hundreds of people. They sell tickets to it. I don't know how they really do that. It's so open, you can come from everywhere. I don't know how that end of it works. But it is a huge gathering of people. It's look forward to it. First it was just concerts, and then they turned it into a picnic. It's a family affair, and people bring lawn chairs, they spread out blankets, eat their dinner, and have a good time. They provide nominal fees for some desserts, and they have T-shirts and that kind of thing. They have some contest things that happen at the intermission. And it's very widely supported. They have been around for a long, long time. They get a real diversity of people to come in there. Okay, goal for Raymore. I've laid out sort of an idea of how we might do this, identify, meet with local businesses and patrons who are interested in starting. And I just called it a Raymore Music Society. It needs a name. I just had to call it something. See if there is a viable community group, help give them the tools and advice to get them started, and let them establish, administer, and run their own program. Raymore Arts Commission would be a sponsor. Timeline: to meet and refine goals, locate directors, 8 to 12 months, and within that time have a strategic plan, discuss site management, budgeting and financial planning, marketing, sponsorship, HR management and volunteer management, and event evaluation and refinement. Try to set up the first events, smaller events in local churches or with the school to provide performances there. Should be able to get the first event, and that's a small one, together in May or June of 2017. The idea behind this is that by the time we celebrate the 150th celebration, which will be here before you know it, that they have a viable group capable of doing the work that needs to be done, handling small events, and by then a larger event where they join with the Summer Arts or the 4th of July or whatever large event the city decides that they want to do to mark the 150th. The 100th anniversary was a big affair. There was not a lot of people in this town, and they involved tons of people. So I'm thinking 150 ought to be even better. The rationale: this benefits our citizens, young and old, by providing easy access to free concerts, and to provide a diversity of musical performance, remove the burden of organizing, administrating, and the musical fair for the community from the Arts Commission, benefit to local businesses who sell refreshments, provides marketing for the sponsors, restaurant sales for visitors who come to see this, shows Raymore as a nice place to visit and live, help bolster community pride and engage our citizens. Putting on a festival is a very unique experience for the citizens, whether they are involved in doing it or whether they just visit. Gives us another opportunity to showcase Raymore, instill a sense of community and knowledge of our history, because the 150th is coming. Help us strengthen relationship within our community, and that would be a real benefit for our town. Help us develop the glue that keeps us together. And that's the idea.
Wow, you did a lot of work, Pat. Thank you very much. That's actually a very wonderful concept, and just knowing what's in the community, I know that there's obviously talented musicians as well as talented artists. I think certainly this is something that would be a great idea. Me personally, I think, and I know I can think of at least 3 people that I would like to put you in touch with that might be able to help do some further research on this. Any other comments from any of the other commissioners? First thoughts? This is just open discussion. We're not voting on anything or making motions.
Pat, I'm in complete agreement with you in the fact that our community is asking for music to be a part of what we present or what we bring into the community. So I absolutely agree with you. I'm a little hesitant to go down this road right now just because I'm not sure what our role as an arts commission is going to be. I think this conversation we have with City Council will really help define that. And one of the things we had talked about with Jill was, does the Arts Commission put on a music series, and do we fulfill that role? And maybe we don't. Maybe we do fund, a subgroup. But I'm just not sure if we know the answer or what the future really is for us or where that goes just yet. But I think this is a great idea and certainly something for us to keep in mind as we define our role as an arts commission.
Well, I think it's appropriate that she brought this to us right now, and I'm thinking that she probably planned that on purpose so that as we have these meetings with the council, as the town or as the city is having their strategic planning meetings, this should be the thought that we have in the back of our minds so that we can make that determination whether perhaps the Arts Commission drives that process or a separate group like this. So I have to say you did a lot of work, Pat, and really appreciate all this effort that you put forth here, and I think it's certainly worth consideration. Thank you. Heather?
I do have a thought also. Everybody on this commission was chosen for their talents and skills, and this is a good example of that. Whether we end up doing this or not, I think it's very important that we feel free to bring these ideas forward, and this sounds like a really good one for me, because this is what the people want. They want music. We're supposed to be out there bringing the arts to the citizens and making them happy, and they specifically have asked for something like this. And it would be nice to have people that are specifically working on that component of what they want, and that could free us up to do like the big summer event and smaller things and more support to other organizations doing things.
I agree. Anybody else have a comment? Questions?
I just wish that we had some way to identify all that large majority, that, wasn't it 60% or something, that people that music was the top choice. Maybe it was even larger than that. And I don't know how we do that, but hopefully they would come out of the woodwork if we get something like this set up. And I mean, personally, I know we have Becky too, because I'm a big classical music fan, and I'd like to see more classical music and student music involvement. So I hope we can make use of Becky's professional attachment to the symphony.
And I'd like to make one more comment. If the bond does pass and we get the funding for the amphitheater, which will be built in 2017, is that correct? Okay.
Sorry, I'm not
But
sure for the time frame for
It's
that.
going to be in the recent future.
Yeah.
So I think something like this needs to get started so they have time, like we are, working through the kinks and deciding which direction they're going. So they have that time to do it so that when we do have a, nice facility where we could have musical events and bring the community in, they're already in place and going.
Well, it does take time, as we all know, to get something like this developed, and we're in our infancy, so the sooner we can put thought to the process, the sooner it'll come to fruition, if that's meant to be. Desiree?
Yeah, I also wanted to echo that I think this is a great long-term goal and a great long-term project, but while we've heard that people want to see a music event, we don't know what kind. I mean, we don't know if it's a classical, we don't know if it's country, rock, we don't know if it's a small community picnic or if it's something that's going to be much larger that they're expecting, a 4-day concert series. So I think that's really important that we start trying some things out first before we commit to, one path. We have to be able to see what the city is receptive to.
I think hopefully this summer scene that we do this summer, hopefully we'll get a flavor for what the people like by introducing musicians of all kinds. My hope would be that during the day that there's different types of music presented, whether it's classical, folk music, rock, blues, jazz, whatever. I'm hoping that this is a kickoff to really see what kind of music people respond to in the community. So, but anyway, I appreciate Pat's. Oh, I'm sorry, Bob.
Just wanted to say, I think Pat made a really strong argument for option 1 and option 3.
Thank you again, Pat. I really appreciate that. All right. Are there any other comments from any of the commissioners before the evening ends? I'm sorry, Desiree?
Yep. I attended the Arts KC event recently, and I found it very interesting that the whole discussion was around arts administration and whether or not most of these groups should be a policy group or an implementation group. And the panel, there were about 7 different individuals, and they all spoke to the importance of, even if you are a policy group, how important it is that you also are able to help step up and implement. Because too many of these organizations have a lot of great thinkers who come up with ideas, but they're not really willing to put forth the time and effort into actually helping them come to fruition. So I thought that was interesting as we have this discussion, that it really is a consideration that if it's not us who's doing it, well then we better find a great network in the community who can help drive a lot of this, because none of these ideas are going to go anywhere unless there's somebody to actually complete them.
Yeah, that's for sure. Thank you. Pat?
Yes, got an email about the, was it Music Alive, that was held at Benton House. And I was the only one who appeared, other than residents of Benton House. They were rather stunned to see me. But anyway, and because they hadn't had a bunch of RSVP, they changed the program. However, they had a lady who came and presented a program for the residents to try to help get music into their life, and it was an extraordinary experience. They were having dinner, and we were seated so we could all see each other's faces. And the lady came out and explained what she was going to do, asked if any of them had trouble sleeping, so there were some things they could do with music to help them sleep, and all the hands went up except mine for having trouble with sleeping. But the group started out very quiet, and the place has not been open very long. It's a very nice place, very nice place. So there were a couple of couples and then some singles there. And a friend of mine who was recovering from surgery, and they sort of knew each other, but it was very quiet. And the lady presenting the program started up music, and she started up with James Brown's I Feel Good. And eyes just flew open, even on these folks. There were a couple there well into their 90s who, whoa, wait. It sort of woke them up. They sang songs. We sang songs with everybody's name in it, so we all knew each other, and then we could talk about things. She did about an hour-long program I was just kind of interested in what was going on there. The actual video and discussion that they were supposed to have didn't take place because they didn't have a large group come. But it was very interesting. I was interested in what kind of programs that they are offering for our senior citizens, being I'm getting there right away. But it was very, very interesting. And while I was there, I think, yeah, it was Al told me about they had a pianist who came in a couple days before and played well. They have a grand piano there in the main place. But it was very interesting, and I talked to the lady who did the presentation, and she's part of a larger group that goes and does many of these within communities, centers, community schools, all different ages, addressing all different sorts of things, but using music therapy. Even the normal folks need music therapy from time to time to feel better about things. So it was very, very interesting, and it was definitely worthwhile.
Great. Well, I think as we have more interaction with things like that, it's just going to add to our list of things that we can do to include the community members and also use for ideas for our own purposes. So that's great. If you could maybe jot down the name, just.
I can send you that. I got a card.
Okay, great. That would be great, because I think that's important for us to keep gathering that type of connection and information. Anybody else? I'm sorry, Heather?
I'd like to say that I'm really pleased with all of the work that we've been doing since we've formed as a commission, and especially the art exhibition here in Chambers is going to be very nice to see change throughout the year and to support the local artists and the work that we've been doing with the schools and everything. I'm pleased, and we're coming up with some really good ideas, and I'm very excited.
Good, thank you. Desiree?
If I can echo that sentiment, I also want to express appreciation for Meredith, Dana, and for Mike. I think the documents they've been producing and all of the support that they've given us in this last year has been tremendous, and not sure we could have done it without them.
You've made us look very good.
Exceptionally.
Yeah, I want to say a special thank you to Dana for really putting up that exhibit back there of the students. She went out and bought the actual materials to hang the artwork and helped with the labeling for the student artwork itself. But I'm just thrilled, and I know the Tri-County Art League is anxiously awaiting the application process, because the artists in that league are looking forward to having another venue to display their artwork. And I just, as I say, I think it's wonderful. This is a wonderful venue, and it'll help brighten the Chambers, and just another way to connect the community. So thank you, Dana and Mike and Meredith, for helping make this possible.
Thank you.
So, all right. If we have no further comments, may I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
A second, please?
Second.
Okay. Approval, those in favor of adjourning, please raise your hand. Okay, it's unanimous. We're adjourned. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
No, that wasn't, just
I really
Some
wish
background.
that we had some sort of public community board, like a Facebook page for the Arts Commission that people could